AI may not kill your job, but someone who uses AI might take that job. A lot of people are using AI, but they're using AI as a replacement for search, not considering how powerful it really is. And I think as that evolution starts coming through, that becomes a huge, huge difference.
Hey everybody, this is Dan Keldsen, Chief Innovation Officer at InfoCap, and this is yet another episode of NextFutureToday. And my guest is a longtime friend, Wayne Kurtzman. He's Research VP for Social Communities and Collaboration at IDC, has been there for about 9 years at this point. So part of the reason we ran into each other was through knowledge management, that good old standby that comes back into fashion time and time again, and collaboration topics, enterprise-focused topics typically, and a couple surprises to me, although not in the end. We're talking about play and the impact of thinking of gaming experiences and sort of immersion and interactivity and things like that, which I don't want to give too much away about that piece. But we talk a lot about AI. Surprise, surprise. Is it a companion? Is it a good companion? Is it empowering your team, or is it just empowering you? Is it being used in valuable ways from what Wayne can see in the data? And where do you even get started? My typical endpoint question, and where to go from here. So we cover a lot. Wayne's a fun guy. We've known each other for a long time. Have a similar sense of humor. I think we should get right to it. Let's go. Hey, Wayne. How are you doing today? It's been a long time since we first met each other back in the, I think it was post Y2K, but it might have been before Y2K.
It was right around there. Right around there.
Yeah. All a blur for us old people.
Pardon?
Exactly. Hey. And I believe, so we ran into each other in the context usually of knowledge management back in those days. You were pretty early on doing data analytics. You've had an interesting life in sort of research capacity, consulting capacity, inside software and hardware companies, advising from the outside. You've done work with Destination Imagination, Dicor to a certain extent, the corporate version of that. So we have a bunch of overlap there. When you try to explain to people what the common thread is through all of that, how do you talk about that? Is there something that's obvious in hindsight now, or that you planned as part of that journey?
The journey was interesting. I'm a recovering journalist, recovering broadcast meteorologist. I'm recovering from that very badly, by the way. And came over to technology. And basically started building knowledge bases. It's content, just feeding it differently. Knowledge management was the same thing, and search, and expanding how do you get more people involved in the process, creating content, vetting content. So knowledge bases were part of that. I spent a good part of my career at Intel helping start the knowledge management program there, and ultimately continued on to social communities, collaboration programs until now. I'm leading that global practice at IDC, which is amazing because you will learn something new every morning before 8 or 9 a.m. And you keep on learning and you keep on sharing. And the people I've worked with are amazing, and the people I work with in and outside are amazing. And that's special all by itself.
Yeah. And you've been with IDC for
9 years, going on 10. And
okay, time flies.
And just to lead a practice around the things I love is great, but I think the feedback that I constantly get, how the market is changing right now, how work is evolving as a whole, and you see this from your perch as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. We're in the midst of one hell of a lot of change in technology, and a lot of it that's very, just applicable to everybody, because it's made things sort of human friendly that were once super complex only for extreme nerds. That AI used to be a much more complicated thing to take advantage of as a regular human being, unless you're really into the guts. So I think it's fascinating. It's slightly worrying in some situations, but overall pretty neat. From what you're doing these days as VP, research VP for social communities and collaboration, so you talk about H2H, H2AI, and AI to AI, and apparently not H2O, that's water.
I should add that. No, but starting on the AI side is kind of the challenge. I'm going to start on the people side, because collaboration
Okay.
is what people do around common outcomes. They work together. The right technologies will help them scale. At the same time, work is becoming more collaborative. Those teams back there more intelligent where AI is introduced, but also more multimodal, different type of modalities, not just voice and video, but some new ones. Work is becoming more hands-on and starting to develop some of the elements of a multiplayer quest. Not Oregon Trail Quest, something a little bit more modern, although they do have a new version. And work is taking those attributes of what people are expecting. How do they collaborate? When do they collaborate? Hint, it's not email. How do they get through their silos? And we find often a culture of collaboration helps build that bridge, give people the ability to bring their thoughts, although some thoughts and some ideas may need assembly when it gets there, but the idea is there. So, how do you bring that across? How do you grow that? And we're seeing that change, not just within companies, but even they're bringing in their partners and their customers to collaborate.
Right. So since you've been in that space for so long, and I was kind of hoping I was going to print out my own, used to have the Twitter frame, the social media frame you would hold up. I thought we could flash back to that. Oh, do you still have it? No?
My portable avatar recognition frame that I wear on my shoulder so people will recognize my
There
background.
you go.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
It's a little bit more complicated with Insta and TikTok now, yes.
Right.
But even changing backgrounds. I mean, there are things back in the pandemic we learned to do more, and a larger group of us learned to do. And we do take that a little bit for granted now, but everyone took giant steps. To use a phrase you used, a lot of folks were slingshotting into the next era.
Yeah, it's always fascinating when somebody else has actually read my book and can talk about it. So yeah, I think that's spot on. So one thing I think a lot of the coverage of AI is about like giving people superpowers. So it'll turn one person into a team of 5 or 10 or 100 or pick an outrageous number that looks good in social media. But what about that's great to empower individuals. What have you seen where AI is applied to collaboration itself? So not just you and a bot or whatever you want to call it collaborating, but a team collaborating in concert with AI in some capacity where it's clear that it's at work. It's not just smarter search or something like that. It's more like this is, for lack of a better word, and maybe you have a better one, like embodied AI is part of that team, and without it, they'd be screwed, basically.
I think parts that are missing in some companies is that core of trust. And trust, if you talk to an old school CIO, was, well, our systems trust each other. We have a system level trust. But we're talking about trust of the systems, but also the workforce members' trust of each other, of the systems, of the executives, the executive back. There's a whole new level of trust that helps form a culture that makes collaboration more effective. And in that, when you get to that level, or even on the road to that level, because it won't happen in every line of business, every department at the same time, you start realizing people are more willing to share their ideas, to speak into your collaboration platform, to start adding value before AI by integrating applications. The most mature collaborating organizations generally will run 9 or more integrations. seamless integrations into their Collab stack. And what they will tend to add first is workflow management, collaborative workflow. So there are Sanas and Mondays and Smart Sheets of the world. So work can be measured, and we get closer to starting to see that creativity and collaboration in one place, measure it through the messy process to customer outcomes. So your CRM is there. Where does AI come in? At every step. First, saving you a little bit of time, raising some things that maybe are right, maybe aren't. So critical thinking becomes one of those new core skills that we didn't need before as much. Actually, the last 100 years of the workforce kind of was pushing that out of us. Don't question us. Now it's coming back. It becomes not only the need for critical thinking, but creativity. And for collaboration, the ability to share that and to see those outcomes. And you're measuring what was not measurable before. And that becomes cool. The first measurements are time based measurements. We can go to market 37% quicker, rough number. We're saving, but the more integrations you do, we're seeing the best of companies, maybe about 20%, 15 to 20% of them, starting to get over 30 hours per person per week time savings. They are scaling themselves, and that number increases once you add AI.
And so what are they doing with the extra time they've bought back, so to speak? Is that, do they do more projects? Do they do them more thoroughly? Does the outcome cost less than it might have been expected to?
The result varies. What we're starting to see is they're adapting to being able to do work at a whole nother level. And they're reusing it to keep improving within their skill set to deliver, in some cases, new products, new streams of revenue, new ways of executing products. And this is migrating to an intelligent collaborative workspace. This, I think, will have a long tail, but we're already seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, you can say Slack started that 8 years ago and others joined in. It is a unified collaborative platform where everything you need customized to you is right there. So there's less context switching, less jumping between the apps. It's AI driven and assisted, agentic, and agents will think for themselves with the human on the loop or in the loop, depending on how you set it up. And that's still evolving, and in very,
Yep.
very many ways, it's still nascent, and we're still getting through the security, governance, compliance issues and the trust issues. Oh, that word again, to move forward.
Yeah.
But we're seeing results now. The question is, where can we take this? Are we going to see more experience parity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're seeing it already. Are we seeing more outcome-based analytics? We're seeing that starting to develop. The companies that have these integrations, they're already creating new metrics with things they couldn't measure a year ago.
As far as integration goes, so I usually think, I mean, this is, it's the same kind of problems that were surfaced during the Enterprise 2.0 days, where there was a flood of things coming at you, various signals that could be RSS or any number of formats at the time. And people were getting beat to death by all these signals that were coming at them. So then you have to figure out how to filter them out, and you run the risk of filtering out important things accidentally, which is not good. So there's a strategy that's needed. We could call it governance, or less threateningly, I think, just a strategy on how do you deal with this stuff. And I used to think about like meta layers. So there'd be like a social signal level, there'd be an enterprise search level, perhaps there might be a knowledge management level, those sorts of worlds. What are you seeing as the integration points these days that are actually successful? And if you want to name anything that seems like it should have been successful but seems to never work out, that would be great to surface.
Well, you raise a great point about the dangers of the one-size-fit-all prompt or connection. The integrations at this point are essentially applications. So we're seeing it at the application layer.
Right.
And We're
Okay.
seeing companies having to rethink their collaboration. How do they do it? And the best way is still a way that's worked for a long time, just like in real life community. You onboard people, you have mentors and models
Mm.
at a non-manager level so they don't feel they're being judged when they're asking questions. And those people
Right.
also can share
Yep.
information back. What will be a good incentive? What's a problem that needs to be addressed now? So it creates a good career path for them, but it also connects the company in new ways, which becomes a very cool way of growing together and quickly fixing things that go off the rails. If one person sees it go off the rail and they check, that person is aware. So we are seeing a reboot of collaboration, of realizing that collaboration app that they used may not be enough. That one, as a matter of fact, we've seen a significant growth in the number of conferencing applications being used, mostly for workplace experience and for customer experience. What just works? What other things do they have? So we're seeing now
Yeah.
that level of visual collaboration, the Miros and Murals of the world, Zoom's whiteboard, Microsoft's whiteboard, all being used at different levels. Uniformly? No, not yet. But again, it becomes part of that multiplayer workspace.
Yeah. Well, and that's, as you know, that's an area that I've loved for a long time. You know, what can we do to bring the experience of good games, anyhow, maybe not so much the bad games, and bring that into what does it actually mean to be in, I don't know, a both a playful environment that maybe doesn't take itself so seriously or isn't so constrained as like, I'm in Excel, which is a spreadsheet, and thou shalt do only spreadsheet things. If you have access to a wider world of tools that you can just use in combination like you would in reality, that's probably the way that it should go. But we're still, I haven't run into anybody outside of games who are living their daily lives inside of Meta helmets or Apple. I actually only know one person that has the Apple headset and does not use it.
But the
But that virtual environment concept is it's clearly got some legs to it that we haven't really figured out
but the
yet
Meta
collectively.
glasses and the Samsung glasses coming up look very interesting. But again, we get back to a trust layer. When are those glasses on? Can you use them at work? Do you need a separate set of glasses for work to look at NDA material? So there's still a lot of
Yeah,
questions yet to be answered. But if you, the history is you make it popular in the consumer section and eventually it makes its way into the work sector.
right. Yeah. So I wanted to pull a recent stat that you had. So you talk about $1.3 trillion in AI spend by 2029, but your research says that the real advantage comes when AI is grounded in human collaboration and community. So how does that change? One of the areas that we do at InfoCap is all about federal benefits for U.S. citizens and people that live in the U.S. So healthcare.gov, other benefits like that. So typically, unless it's military, then things that benefit regular people, that portion of the federal government or any portion of federal state, doesn't really matter, tends to be pretty late adopters for things. So the impact, part of it's the natural environment, not wanting to spend money on cutting edge things. It's also the nature of buying things takes longer in those situations typically than in the commercial world where it's, a CIO or somebody can just authorize whatever they want, more or less, and make it happen. So in the situations where it's government serving citizens or things like that, have you seen any examples where using AI as part of collaboration or maybe knowledge management has been something that's really taken off in the last year, 3 years, or that you expect to take off?
To hit that number, that 1.3 trillion, a big part of that number is going to be infrastructure. And that's also going to be one of those areas
Mm-hmm.
that which infrastructure is trusted? Why is it trusted? What can you do? But I am definitely seeing some elements in different parts, different sectors start leveraging what pretty much everyone agrees will be a big part of whatever evolves. It took hundreds of years for some of the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, to fully roll out. This is rolling out really, really
Yeah.
quickly, and in part because everyone's connected. So there is
Right.
some pressure to do that.
Okay. Are you tracking? There's a lot of, so AI in theory, if you plug it into the right sources, can do at least can appear to do similar things that we used to rely on traditional or even more modern knowledge management platforms or search platforms that, it used to be hideously expensive and has collapsed a lot for doing federated search across different systems, and instead of having to do search within each of them with their own unique flavor. Are you seeing investments that are sort of collaboration and community oriented that specifically are kind of killing off the old approaches, or is it it's an add-on that adds value on top of existing investments, or what's the dynamic that you see
We're
in there?
seeing a lot of activities on both sides, and I would say that the core is being able to have things that are open and talk to each other. If you're going to connect people, and people are the drivers, then the thing you really want to make sure is that the systems talk to each other. And to get back to a point that you alluded to earlier, is the reason collaboration and communities, enterprise communities, for example, become so important, is that is the way AI can tell very quickly if things are changing. That is where context is mentioned in meetings, in video conferencing, in
Mm-hmm.
chat, in next level, in visual collaboration platforms. It can pick up the change. There is, for example, a company I worked at, same product, had 5 code names before it got its market name. You kind of need a way to balance that. Just
Yeah.
saying, it was a little confusing for the first number of years, but
Right.
AI can detect when something is changing in, say, engineering, and can instantly inform other departments that either need to know or need to be involved. So we're seeing that
Mm.
rounding of AI in context for recency signals, for social signals, for any number of ways that will actually eventually become measurements that we can use. And just because we can measure it doesn't mean we necessarily should, but it may give us signals to how to improve in real time in our particular
Yeah.
roles.
Right. Hmm. Okay. And are there in the what you just described, is that more sort of general tools that you're using, or are there specific tools that have those capabilities in, say, manufacturing, or something that's very specific like that?
Well, there are 4 waves that we've seen really come through. Is one is team collaboration apps, Microsoft Teams, the Slack,
Mm-hmm.
increasingly Zoom of the world, video conferencing, and let's not forget our partner cloud storage. The next wave came through with collaboration with external users. So let's bring our partners in, give them a say. Collaborative documents, virtual events actually became part of that next wave. Then collaborative work management
Mm-hmm.
started coming in. So whether it's a Dassault or whether it's the Asana Reichs of the world, we're starting to attach behaviors, at least at some level, because not every work can be done. Every work has fire drills that set things back, but how can you manage it easily? We're seeing that growing adoption as part of the collaboration, and now communities, bringing your customers and partners, and not looking to bring in customers, but looking to create fans. So that's another outlook change. The communities within the workforce, by the way, generally the first one that really catches
Mm-hmm.
traction. Internal communities are about pets or about after school activities, and this seems to be global. And then visual design.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
seeing that growth in visual design, in more visual collaboration. And those numbers are growing fairly substantially. So we're literally seeing these applications, the point applications, if you will, don't like the term, but the purpose-built
Yeah.
applications that speak to
Yeah.
others. And when it comes down to an intelligent workspace, then it becomes much easier to manage. You use very frequently MCP to bring all the AI together. You can use some of the other orchestration technologies out there, many of which you can talk to acquiesce. So if you are talking to a collaborative work management app, let that system AI be the subject matter expert to inform the rest of the agents. So who is your subject matter expert? Who should be? Who has a good AI? Or should it be another system? So those decisions do have to be made, and I expect will be pretty fluid over the next number of years. But there's a good start right now. And I do believe we're going to see more modalities even over the next year to two. We'll see them come into play.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. You know, a lot of what we do at InfoCap is it's around interpreting visual representation. So it could be paper that's scanned in and we're extracting fields from, tables. It could be shaky cam footage with a badly lit shot from a phone that's several generations old, lots of things like that. I remember back in the heyday of Enterprise 2.0, on the show floor, there was somebody showing how he could blog. For reasons I still don't understand, he was taking a picture with his smartphone of the screen that he was showing me, and then attaching the photos. Attaching a photo is not a big deal. What are you actually doing? And he was trying to claim that it was a new millennial behavior, which I suppose maybe it is, and I still don't get it. But just because you have a camera doesn't mean that you should, if it's appropriate to use it, and that helps. These days, take a picture of a sketch on a napkin and have your favorite AI turn that into a photorealistic model, or interpret it so that it's text that you can stick into a document of some kind. That's cool, but just having the capability itself doesn't help you so much if there's not a reason to use that. What's it adding to take advantage of that particular capability?
And that brings up another good point about curiosity. A lot of people are using AI, but they're using AI as replacement for search, not considering how powerful it really is. And I think as that evolution starts coming through, that becomes a huge, huge difference. Honestly, we were planning a
Yeah.
trip, so I showed off a little AI. We're going to do 3 days here, and yeah, my wife was a little surprised, but it is that powerful that it knows if you've used it for a while, what you like, what you don't like, what you listen to. Plan 3.5 days, plan 5 days. And at work, it knows, it starts learning your communication patterns. It starts learning what you do, what you like, what you dislike, and then starts raising topics to you.
Right.
And if that's a little creepy, we can talk about that later. But how powerful, how powerful do you want it to be? Because the convergence ultimately still comes down. It's that ball of trust, it's culture building on it. And then it's the team doing
Yeah.
their things. The visuals are ascending, the collaboration is improving,
Yeah.
the human skills need to evolve. What we measure, security, ain't what it used to be. It's so much different.
Yeah.
And how does the team do
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
things together quickly? And generally, a team does it quicker.
Yeah.
So, again, back to the collaboration and community.
I've asked variations of this a couple times. There's the I don't recall if it's Facebook or it's that sort of startup realm time frame. There's the idea that if your team takes more than 2 pizzas to feed, then your team is too big and you should jettison, which is, for a lot of places that I've not directly worked in but consulted to, they can easily create a gigantic hall full of people that are on the team. And what do you know? They're very slow. Do you feel like today, whether it's using AI specifically or just the broad set of offerings that are available that have some piece of AI that baked into it, that maybe we shift from two pizza pie teams down to single pizza teams because we don't need as many people to do the sort of guts, the grimy parts of the work that might be handed off to some tool?
I see the need for more people in time. I think that curve changes
Really?
around
Okay.
just the same way that everyone was decrying that when you put in electricity, all those frozen water people who lugged ice up 3 flights of stairs will be out of work, and the 50,000 to 100,000 who did the billing and all that. That bank tellers,
Right.
when ATMs came out, we will adapt. AI may not kill your job, but someone who uses AI might take that job.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
been said over and over again, but the more you can do, the more you can play with AI, the more you, as a matter of fact, there was a new release of one of the products. I'm coding something. I don't code really well. It's doing a great
Hmm.
job for me. It's giving me the output I need, but again, on a level that I couldn't do before. So we have to really play with AI individually and use it as a superpower that we don't know the upper end of. Still protect our businesses because we don't know the upper end. What can we do? We used to say, what can we
Yeah.
do this year that we couldn't do last decade? And now, what can we do this week that we couldn't do last week?
Yeah, I know. What's changed about how you track your world? Because you were already steeped in research anyhow. What's keeping you from going absolutely insane with everything that's coming at your way to try to
Well,
track?
I've always looked at the earlier on ways to get more information to me and process it. And now I do have some agents
Hmm.
that I've listed a lot of specific companies and companies that I'm not aware of yet that meet certain criteria
Mm.
and paths of adapting it.
Hmm.
So I do have things that surface to me as a starting point each day. The challenge is, what do you do with that?
Yep.
It's like AI does this great stuff. What are you going to
Right.
do with it? That is really the differentiator. What are you going to do
Right.
with it that makes a difference? So for me, I used to research about 3 hours a day just on what's new. That number is down to about 45 minutes. And then I'll play with
Mm.
AI some more. But, and then how do I express the change to others so they can not only see what AI is doing, what AI will do, but what the other technologies will do on top? And how do you recreate your business with all of that? And that becomes the difference. It's not just AI, it's everything that AI touches turns to something, but you have to figure out where the gold is for you, knowing that the gold may change next year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be the reverse. It'll be well. So there's definitely talk about fool's gold, and in a lot of the AI that's out there, including a ton of what's the Y Combinator and the Forbes 30 under 30. There's been at least 4 or 5 people on that list that have gone to jail or are going to go to jail because their claims of super fantastic fill in the blank were were a Ponzi scheme in some cases, or just outright, you know, to be kind, not exactly reality.
That has probably happened in every time period, but not knowing.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you leverage it? It's your turn to be creative. It's your turn to be collaborative. It's your turn to use AI, and it's your turn to play with it to do things that weren't possible last week. And then once you start realizing where there could be a market, then you can do things that didn't exist. So To be honest, someone was asking me a number of years ago about developing a better whiteboard. And my first question was, why would you call it a
Hmm.
whiteboard if it can do so much more? It's basically a canvas that you can do
Right.
things on. We have to reinvent terms, and that becomes a whole other challenge.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And how much is tied to the terms we used to use, and that prevents you from doing certain things that are totally, they're not a real constraint. It's just what we've allowed ourselves to believe.
And I think those constraints will change very quickly, where people will think this is impossible and will never go to market. And 6 months later, it could do remarkably well, which
Right.
makes it a challenge for companies looking at narratives. In some companies, they have to go into market with two narratives. So, for example, the old Peter Drucker example, are your people an asset to be used or an asset to be developed? How we view the workforce will kind of drive that outcome, but it builds collaboration. Are you providing tools? Or are you providing a tool and a culture of collaboration that can drive ideas? Same with location or AI use case, reducing headcount or creating new efficiencies that enable new revenue streams to constantly evolve. It's up to you. The trad skills, I just wanted to
Right.
say trad skills, or the creativity, collaboration, the critical thinking, the just in time learning, the selected mastery, how much mastery is necessary. Are they doing social or
Yeah.
are they truly social in social media? So, all these trends.
Right.
And ultimately, you'll find people who really still believe the internet is a place to look stuff up and buy or sell, depending on your point of view. And the
Right.
others think it's a place to learn,
Yeah. And
act,
that's it.
react, transact, and affect transactions in real time. And that's a whole different world.
Right.
And pick a side.
Right.
But
Right.
if you're selling into a company that has both of those going on at different business levels, you kind of need both narratives. And that's a challenge right
Mm.
now in the tech market. I expect in the government market to some extent, because people.
Yeah. Okay. So we're about to run out of time. So one thing I like to wrap up with, the point of Next Future Today is to help equip people who probably knew there are some things that they really should be doing, but they haven't gotten around to it yet. Maybe there's a bunch of ideas and they haven't been able to choose. So based on the world that you cover and that we talked about, what's something that people could do today that would put them on even the first step of a path to what they might be headed towards in the future as it relates to AI and collaborative technology and shifting to outcome metrics?
To play, to absolutely play. Play is one of those things
Okay.
that we didn't really talk about, but is becoming more important. When you're doing something, you're mission focused, got to get it done, you're not playing. When you're looking and
Mm.
assume the application can do it, you just don't know how yet. And with AI, it can help you learn that. I think playing
Hmm.
becomes important, then collaborating to the next level, bring in some other folks. And I think that level, that's the one thing you can do is play every day, and you will be in a much better place.
Okay. Cool. I like it. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? You're on LinkedIn. Is I haven't looked. Are you on Twitter still? I
Uh,
killed my account a year ago.
LinkedIn is probably the best. Blue Sky is there. X, if I get a DM, I'll check. But yeah, primarily LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way for now.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, Wayne, as always, every time we get together in person or virtually like this, always have a fun time talking. We should, as we say every damn time, we should do it more often, but I'm glad we made it happen today. So thank you for taking time out of, I know you're flying all over the place. You're a busy guy, so thank you for taking some time when you're at home for a brief moment in time anyhow, and share some of your current day and historic knowledge.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Wayne.